MSMEs are concerned, the blow has been severe. A large number will never be able to recover, and the ones that survive may have to start all over again. Picking up the threats and trying to build new avenues of business, which will be very, very tough. They will be confronted by lack of finance, broken supply chains, unavailability of skilled labor, and more. We need to be really serious. Sir, let us hear the experts today on some of the issues and understand the best possible way open to industry to emerge out of the crisis with new hope and purpose. Thank you, sir.
Namaskara, sir. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you. We are exactly 101 people who are in as of now. And we are absolutely delighted to partner with KASSIA and bring this to you. As Arsapa said, truly, very correctly, this unprecedented that we are all facing is unprecedented actually. And how do we get out of this situation that we are in? So there are three phases to this entire problem that we are looking at. The first is there anything that we can do in the short? Today, more than at any point of time, industry is completely stressed. And to be honest with you, Randir, if you can pull up the next slide, please. So let me first of all, without any further ado, sir, introduce to you our first panelist today. Our first panelist of the day is Mr. Amit Chatterjee. Mr. Amit Chatterjee has been an executive coach. He's a growth facilitator to CEOs, MDs, business owners in India and Germany. He has a solid 35 years of experience in the industry, 15 years of which he was managing director of a company, the Sartorius Group of Companies. It's a German multinational. He helped build up this company from a 20-man, 3 crore startup to a 500-man, 500 crore business. During the COVID times, Amit is advising a manufacturing company with severe cash flow problems to ramp up sales. And he is also mentoring the CEO of a small medium industry in executing change management practice, a Masters of Management from the AIT, and he is a publisher. He has written a lot on many a storm in his life, and we are very fortunate to have Mr. Amit Chatterjee on this panel today. Welcome, Amit. Amit, if you were the CEO, if you were running an MSME today, Amit, how would you lead in today's circumstances? Amit?
Thank you, Ram. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Well, it's a heavily loaded question with almost 200 plus odd leaders as an audience running their companies in real time as we speak. For me, leading an MSME is no different to leading a 500-man or a 200-man, 2,000-man company. I will come to today's times in a minute. Leading essentially is about influencing few others, your change agents, also leaders, to achieve the results that we have decided to create going forward. Now, when you think about results for the next 100 days or 300 days, you are talking about today's times. You're talking about the targets or goals for the next 365 days. That's why I take on growth facilitation contract for the next 365 days. The CEO has to secure the cash flows for the next 3 months or the 6 months and do everything thanks of the government. But 3 or 6 month targets. After all, as per the Companies Act, even an MSME is a perennial entity. It has to thrive for the next 2-3 years and keep flourishing even beyond the CEO's lifetime. The leader of a company has to ensure that his vision is acted upon as required even in today's times. He or she has to make choices about what changes have to be made today, which will make the plans for the next 2 or 3 years become a reality. Is to develop his successors for ensuring the midterm and the long-term future of his company. In today's times, it is even when the business owner can free himself up to focus on new markets, new technologies, new horizons for growth, right? We all know that running at much, Ram.
Fantastic. Thank you very much,
Ram.
Amit. Thank you so much, Amit, for that point.
You can't hear me.
I can hear you.
I probably ended on a little harder note.
Okay, we'll move on till Amit can come back. Randeep just reached out to Amit. Thank you very much, Amit. That was a very interesting point that you mentioned about the 365-day plan that we need to look at. Thank you for that. There are any questions that you would like questions as we go along? And I can see my good friend Ravi from Trinity here. Hi, Ravi. Thank you, Haren Ashar, for being here. Our next panelist is Mr. P.S. Rao that I'd like to introduce you to Advisory Services. Prior to starting his business consulting journey 6 years back, Mr. Rao was working in the IT software industry for over 2 decades. Mr. Rao has worked for small startups as well as large MNCs like Hewlett-Packard in various management roles. As such, he understands the opportunities and challenges that are at play at both ends of the business spectrum, small businesses and large businesses. ESR, as he is known, has expertise in developing enterprise-scale IT information systems and products all along his working years. He now focuses on working with traditional non-IT business in implementing processes and systems in the MSME space. ESR specializes in creating a robust back office for a business, as he believes the back office of any business is essentially its backbone. ESR specializes in managing data and creating MISs and dashboards that are critical for the MSME survival. Mr. Rao, welcome to this panel.
Thank you, sir.
As MSME owners need to focus on during these times. You know, we're going through challenging times. There's far too many things that are happening. But what do you believe as an MSME owner, and so many of us here today? I'm absolutely happy to tell you that there are about 120 people here. What do you think we should be focusing on, Mr. Rao? Mr. Rao?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ram, for that wonderful introduction. And that's in fact a very, very important and pertinent question. I'd like to start first by thanking everyone who joined us here, and also we're going live on Facebook. So to answer your question, at times like these, the 3 most important things every business would want to focus on are: 1, whether existing operations can be run more efficiently. So every business is extremely conscious of the spend, and one fundamental cost is the cost of operations. So this is the time to look at each process, each activity, and analyze that if these can be refined or streamlined and executed more efficiently. So that's number one. Two, are businesses tracking their critical performance parameters is fundamental to evaluating the performance of a business and in its ability to survive in the short run and also possibly remain competitive in the long run. So MSMEs need to identify and implement key operational metrics or performance indicators, as we call, to evaluate their own performance from time to time. Let me look at a few examples. When I say KPIs, these are all jargon words. Every CEO or MD should know what their leads to order conversion rates are. How many leads actually are required to probably get one order, or how much of inventory is the business holding, and more important, how much of capital is locked in inventory, or for instance, what is the average turnaround time between order booking and order use, because this has a direct bearing on the product or service quality that we are providing our customers. So I can give a lot more examples, but the fundamental thing is identifying the right performance measures and using tools and systems to collect data around these indicators is the second most important. My third point is almost everyone who joined us in this room are on film of some sort or the other. Imagine for a moment, and I repeat, imagine for a moment, we remove the front dashboard of the vehicle. What would happen? You will have no idea of what the fuel level is, at what speed we are going, whether the engine is heating up. I drive on the highway, let's say I'm comfortable at 90 or 100, but my car could be going at a 60 or 130, I have no idea. So this is exactly what happens if businesses do not have an MIS or a dashboard with all the KPIs to know whether they are on track to reach the goals that they've set out for the operation. So each department or function, in my view, will have to have carefully thought out performance indicators, and each of these indicators need to be correlated and eventually synced together into a strategic dashboard for the executive management. So if I were to summarize, the three things would be: first, to look at processes, whether the financial, operational, or any other process, that is one, and two, that are required to run the business. Because I believe.
So you are talking about the importance of the right information that is required for all of us to get through this particular issue. Thank you very much. So I'm very grateful to KASSIA and to the president and the managing committee and the council of KASSIA for organizing this program, because we are hearing some new thoughts, we're hearing some new inputs, and I really congratulate the council of KASSIA, and I really congratulate Mr. Arsappa for putting this program together, and to Mr. Jagdish, who really coordinated with us to get the program going. Our next panelist today evening is Mr. Sudhir Swami. Sudhir has over 28 years of overall experience in management consulting and in the growth business. The last 5 years, he's been an independent consultant with Promac Consultancy Services, and he specializes in record of working with MSMEs throughout his career and has successfully executed 200 plus assignments for clients across industry verticals such as automotive, education, engineering, healthcare, insurance, technology, and non-profits. Previous to this, he was a management consultant with Ernst & Young for close to 18 years and worked extensively with startups, SMEs, and large multinationals. Sudhir is an engineer by qualification, also an alumnus of the IIM Bank, by tennis coach, and he started his venture, Hello Tennis, in 2019. Since the for emergency COVID functioning of international healthcare initiatives, Sudhir specializes in advising MSMEs on demand creation. Welcome to this panel, Sudhir. Sudhir Swami.
Thank you so much, Ram, and thank you for the. So, as
my question to you, Sudhir, is
right.
How do MSMEs today? Unfortunately, the biggest casualty that we are seeing is demand. Okay, there is absolutely no demand whatsoever in the marketplace. We're opening. That's my question to you.
So as now more than ever that MSME owners and promoters continue to stay positive and do what is in their control to sustain their business operations in this unpredictable environment. And now environment, at least over the next few months. And just to take, we need to start using. He's stressed on tracking and measuring business outcomes, and I strongly recommend to business owners and MSME promoters that you use these business outcomes as a starting point to review your business assumptions and forecasts. And specifically, there are three aspects that I would recommend to review. Firstly, a review of the demand situation is obviously very essential. Now, what does that mean? I mean, we got to probably go one level lower. So, demand requires not merely the need for something, but there also has to be a corresponding purchasing power, from a customer standpoint. So, when we are reviewing demand, MSME should ask the following questions. Number one, can your existing customers sustain your current business during the next 12 months? Number two, are we confident that existing customers will honor their commitment? What is the confidence level? Number three, can short-term pricing adjustments or new pricing models help you in generating some demand? And lastly, but not least, by utilizing your current resources, which may be idle, is there an ability to generate fresh demand by targeting new markets? So these four questions, I believe, are very important. You would have, seen in the news that there was a soaring demand for sanitizers and ventilators, which actually prompted several large their production capabilities to generate short-term revenues. Similarly, I've advised my clients, including MSME, a specific MSME client, with a new initiative where we are looking at repurposing existing solution design skills, supporting professional audio-video projects, and utilize them to offer third-party design services to large integrators. Secondly, in line with demand, MSME should review operating costs, capital to invest in new machinery. So I said, given their current situation, going ahead with a capex plan would actually put too much pressure on their current operations. So my recommendation was that they defer those plans. I also recommended to them that they link their stock purchase with demand, and which can hold a lot of your cash captive. The third thing, and further, MSMEs can also reduce some of their fixed operating costs, and many IT companies and startups have started reducing operating costs, especially in terms of real estate, based on the fact that work from home arrangements are working very well now, or started to work very well. And in smaller companies, there is definitely, and even in some of the larger companies, there is a clear, there seems to be some appetite for hiring people on demand, contract hiring, and so on, instead of going in for full-time staff. So these are certainly some opportunities for reducing some of your fixed costs. Lastly, I believe it is critical for MSMEs to develop scenario-based cash flow forecasts, preferably on a monthly basis. Needless to say, tracking actuals to the forecast can indeed help MSMEs stretch their finances to support operations in the short and medium term, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Collection, and I'm sure you would know that collection of pending payments and advances, especially from new clients, is an absolute necessity. Liquidation of debt stock, through aggressive pricing, should also be considered very seriously, as it may provide a very good option to generate cash on the short term. So to conclude, I would say that MSME should proactively assess their current demand situation and redraw their plans, their assumptions linked to that demand, and then use that as the stepping stone for the next phase when you get back to growth mode. So that's.
Thank you very much, Sudhir. So your point on demand creation, and how do we actually look at demand from existing customers and new customers, I think it's a very interesting point that you've said. Lots to think about, lots to know about. I'd now like to welcome Amog Girdhar. Amog is the next expert on our panel this evening. Amog heads engagement at Prequate, and apart from also managing investor relations and communications for their IB division. Prequate is a 10-year management consulting firm which has worked with over 400 businesses till date across 21 countries. Prequate works with early growth stage firms like Quality Foods, Vedantu, and Sushma Group, to name a few. Although largely sector agnostic, Most of their current clients include companies in the technology, manufacturing, FMCG, and FB, among other sectors. He is the youngest on this panel. I'm the oldest on this panel. A large part of Amog's career of 15 years has been work size from XLRI. Amog, welcome XLRI. Amog, welcome to this panel. Amog, where are you?
From?
Just talk up. Amog advises MSMEs on the need to rationalize costs during these times. Amog, most of the questions that that have been asked to us is around cash, around managing cash flows. So your answers are being very eagerly looked forward to. When the financial situation is challenging, Amog, what is your advice to MSMEs on rationalizing cost? There's a lot of talk about cutting costs. My question to you is cost cutting the right way to deal with this crisis today? Amog?
Thank you very much, Ram. Thanks for the lovely introduction as well. I thank KASSIA and all the other panel members for this lovely opportunity. So, two parts to your question, right? One is about how SMEs or MSMEs are looking at cost itself. As the topic is related to small and medium enterprises, I will share my experience of working with them. Most of the MSMEs think about cost as an expense, and rightly so. It's not really wrong way of looking at it, but if you look at how they are looking at it in terms of just avoiding it or reducing it across the company, which is the important question here to be asked to end, which is mostly post-mortem, and in my view, just crying over spilled milk. How are they preparing for the future is far more critical than anything else. So COVID has actually presented each one of us with a very unique opportunity to really look at how we can look at businesses as a whole. Companies, especially in a lot of bad situations, resort to cost cutting as a blanket initiative, which, in my opinion, is never a great idea. Studying cost, analyzing and implementing whatever changes is a very complex task amongst, and most SMEs don't even have the team in-house to be able to deal with the situation. I think I can explain this with a very simple analogy. Think about cost as about losing weight. Do you think it's actually sustainable for you to starve yourself, or if it's even healthy for you to starve yourself to lose weight? I don't think it's at all. I mean, you might actually get short-term results, but the momentary satisfaction is all you get, and the strategy is definitely not sustainable. What is sustainable, though, is creating a calorie deficit diet plan. You have a balanced nutrition, and you have a workout regime. Similarly, cutting costs across the board only has very short-term results, and there must be better planning to make it work long-term. Like vision, like goals, sales, or revenue targets, you must have a plan for short, medium, and long-term. SMEs is cutting back on marketing expense, like, let's say, ad budgets or SEO spends. But according to me, this is a very extremely critical spend, especially in this era of omnichannel presence. That's being both offline and online. You're cutting the cost right away could actually result into a customer looking for a product online or a service that you can offer. You might be saving a few thousand rupees today, definitely, but you will be losing lakhs of business in the future. Are you willing to take that risk is actually the question that we need to ask. In one of our engagements working with a manufacturing company, they had, I think, close to around 60 SKUs. They were based out of Bangalore. They were a 100-employee organization. By relooking and rethinking on how they look at cost, we managed to add 6% to their bottom line. Apart from the COVID itself, which has affected everyone in the world at large, the answer to most problems is within the business itself. How you act on it delivers the results that you can control will be in your favor. To just sum up, I would say be judicious about what you spend, but having a plan with an in-depth analysis also has the risks covered, basically helping you prioritize and ration every single rupee of all. Thanks, Ram.
Thank you, Amog. That was terrific thought. Be judicious with the money that you have. Conserve on cash. Thank you so much for that. Our next on the panel is a knowledge management practitioner. He focuses on helping organizations become competitive and thought leaders through focused capability building and knowledge management. He has more than 20 years of experience and worked across multiple organizations, including Wipro, Unisys, and HPE. During the COVID period, he's been consulting on approaches that can be adopted to safeguard know-how, improve overall competitiveness, and improve efficiency and approaches for moving work to home. He has a PhD in management from the Indian Institute of Science. Randhir researches and writes extensively on managing knowledge, achieving thought leadership, and being competitive. He is the founder and chief consultant of aegis Innovations with offices in Bangalore and Singapore. Sorry. Randhir advises MSMEs in ensuring that knowledge and core competency is not lost when employees leave. This is becoming a very serious issue for all of us, Randhir, and I do hope at some time you're going to talk about how do we conserve the knowledge in the company. But my question to you today, a lot of the questions that have come to us when we asked the MSME owners what is an issue that they have, is one of the questions was, what actions should an MSME owner focus on right now to ensure that they do not lose out on the critical knowledge and the core competencies of 20, 25, 30 years in creating a certain knowledge and creating a certain competency about our business? How should we ensure that this is not lost? Pradeep, my question to you is on that.
Yeah, thanks, Ram, and thanks for the introduction, and thank you, KASSIA, for the opportunity, and welcome all the audience. So I'll quickly talk about the relevance of on demand that is currently affecting us, the MSMEs. Let us also be aware of another challenge that has been impacting the growth of MSMEs, and it's something that is going to key challenges with MSMEs is that most of the know-how, the procedural knowledge, key challenges with MSMEs is that most of the know-how, the procedural knowledge, it may be with a few people and not documented. Okay, and during this kind of once-in-a-lifetime situation, when the MSMEs are under a lot of stress and financial stress, one key impact is losing of employees moving out either through attrition or layoff. And in many cases, when something that of questioning the very existence of the organization, when an employee moves out, you may have to shut down shop also. Okay, so that kind of situation. Hence, it is very important during the, it's always important, and during this time when employees are moving out, you be aware of the critical procedural or important. Let me take you to some of the steps that you can take. Some discipline from you, but not too many technologies. Okay. So one of the most important thing, list out those information and knowledge that are critical. This can be with respect to development of the products, critical challenges in developing a product, what the clients want to buy, or how to identify a client, where are my raw materials available, what are the key challenges in the production, understand what are the challenges with it, what are the key procedural know-how of the organizational employees, then build backups for them, identify people who can learn from them, either as a team, one team learning from an employee, or a one-to-one, right? Creating a backup for all these critical employees. Then along with them, try to document all this know-how. Now, document is not just typing everything and taking it down, but it can, the best way is to create video and audio files where you can, so these days you have mobile phones with good camera. In your smartphones, you can just use that to create video logs of all the critical knowledge, or drive is very common across. Most organizations use it. Dropbox is there, and all that. Store it in a way that it can be easily accessed and safeguarded. So this is what I would like to share here. Ensure that your knowledge is safeguarded in a systematic manner. And now this is the right time for you to do it, because there is a lot of slack also from a time perspective. You can use this time to capture what is most critical and be for the survival in the long run. Thanks, Ram.
Thank you very much, Randhir. Is Amit around? Amit?
Yes. I think I need to give you a little break. You have been asking us a lot of questions. Let me turn the tables and ask you a few. But before that, it's my privilege to also introduce Ram Kumar Seshu. Ram began his firm Born to Win in 2003 with a focus to help the MD or CEO of a company to implement their plans. This is done by enhancing the personal effectiveness of employer HMT, India Post, ITC, Marks and Spencer, Novo Nordisk, Prestige Constructions, and Sarah, SAP Labs, Sasken, and it goes on and on. Ram has been earlier involved with 2 successful startups and 3 turnaround companies at very senior positions. Before starting Born to Win, Ram spent 20 years in advertising. Some of the brands he worked on as an ad man were Amul, Bank of Baroda, Bakelite Highland, Laminates, Sia Tires, Coromandel Fertilizers, Dr. Reddy's Labs, Glaxo, Complan, Goodness Nerolac Paints, Godrej Furniture, ITC Sunroof Oil, ICICI Bank, J&J, Nizoral Shampoo, Reserve Bank of India, Van Baxter employees in implementing decisions. Now, I have actually two questions for you, not one. A, how does one implement decisions taken?
Always feels good hearing about yourself. No doubt about that. So let me quickly tell you. We are in a very interesting time in our life right now. Okay? This collective pause button that has been hit for each one of us is a pause button that is an opportunity and yet is a disadvantage. During MSME, I think it's very important for each of us to keep doing three things. And this is what I've been telling all my customers in the last 3 months. Don't be positive from a foolish perspective because it is not going to work anymore. You must be a realistic optimist, which means you need to find out in what way can you actually in what way can you actually, while optimism is good, while being positive is good, you must also be very, very realistic right now. Therefore, take a hard look at what you're doing, take a hard look at your processes, find out how, which is very, very important at this point of time. The second thing I believe that the owner of an MSME should do right now is to practice perseverance. You see, things are difficult, there is no doubt about it. Difficult times, we need to find out ways and means in which we can make sure that we are going to be practiced very, very important and critical. So if you're not going to be perseverant, if you're not going to make sure that you go through with your plans, and this, whatever be your plans, Sudhir talked about plans, we need to be perseverant. We need to make sure that we persevere with whatever it is that we would like to do. That becomes something which is very, very important at this point of time. So the first one, as I said, we need to be realistic optimists. We can't be vain, you should not be a vain optimist. You should not believe that Allah chanagagutte, Allah change agbidutte. It is a big challenge for us. This situation irutte. But this situation nalli ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಎರಡನೇದು ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಪರ್ಸಿವರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಪರ್ಸಿವರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಇದೆಯೋ ಆ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ನ we need to make sure that we implement those plans. ಅದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಪುಟ್ಟ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಇರಲಿ, ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಇರಲಿ, ಯಾವ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಇರಲಿ, that we need to persevere and go through. And the third thing that I keep telling people at this point of time is something which I call one-pointedness. ಅದು ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು, take one thing that you want to do. ಆ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ನೀವು ಫಾಲೋ ಅಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಈಗ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, there is too much of information in the market. ಯಾರು ಇದು ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಇರಬೇಕು, ನಮಗಿದು ಬೇಕು, ನಾವು through, we need to be completely focused on what we want to achieve. We need to have that one-pointedness. What I am finding, especially now, is that there are too many initiatives that are being taken. Don't make that mistake. ಒಂದು ದಿನಾಲಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಇನಿಷಿಯೇಟಿವ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಅದು you finish that, close that out, and once that initiative is done, then you can move to the next initiative, and then you can move to the third initiative, and then you can move to the fourth initiative. So it becomes very, very important that we remember these 3 points. Number one, be realistic. Like Mr. Rao was talking about the importance of having the right information, the right data. Namatra data illa, we don't know what to do with it. Talking about is to how do you manage the knowledge that is there in the system. So it becomes extremely important and crucial that we do these 3 things. One, be completely realistic. That is something which is very part, which is how do we reboot our entire business? You see, we've been hearing so much about things not going okay. At the same time, like Mr. Arsapa mentioned, there are lots of emerging opportunities. There are some fantastic opportunities available today in the market right now. The second sector that is opening up that all of us know is the pharma sector. Is the pharma sector. That is another sector that is open. Electronics is going to take more sector. Packaging is going to be another big thing because we need better and better packaging right now. We need to get into renewable energy in a big way. Plastics, be interesting. Toys are going to become a big one because people are staying at home and people will start using it. So there are lots of opportunities. These are all what I call sunrise industries. And it is in these sunrise industries that I want to now ask our panelists to move into, saying, fine, we've done what we've done. Now, how do we actually look at the emerging opportunities and try and figure out how can we work on the emerging opportunities? And therefore, I want to bring Amit back into the Amit. We've been hearing that you need to have a vision. Now that we're talking of emerging opportunities, we're talking about rebooting our entire business. How do you develop a vision for your company, and how do you make sure that you can actually cascade it through your operational managers? Amit, I mean, vision is a very, very boring, very fuzzy kind of a word, but how do you actually
realize the importance of this, as you said, fuzzy, boring jargon term vision? And that was when I first took over as the managing director of an acquired German subsidiary of Sartorius in Pune. I had just turned 40 at that time. I had been the VP of sales for Sartorius India till then. And like many others, I was a compulsive reader of books on management. And this fuzzy word vision, used as often as chutney in a CTR deliverables, and the quarterly word vision, which heydays. I knew that I could not turn around the business alone. I needed at least 10 change agents who were driven not merely by the compensation, but like me, by the conviction that we will grow at a CAGR of 25% every year. And we did. In 4 years, we managed to grow the company 3x, and it has been on a roll since then. Now, I come back to the second point, that everything that is possible with existing resources, time, knowledge, finance, etc. Try that. I request all the participants over here, ask yourself as owners of your companies, are you doing in your domain? The answer you will get, but there are a few things, even in today's times, that I can do with my existing resources. Now, when 10 change agents or leaders in your company make their own possibilities list, you as the CEO may approve some of them for execution, since these actions can be taken with. The next thing to do is to make a dream list. 2 or 3 things that you believe should be done once you have the resources. As simple as that. Now you have 10 change agents or leaders in your company who have their possibility. The possibilities is what you can go one at a time and execute them. And you have change agents who have themselves come up with these ideas. You don't have to compensate them additionally, for example. They are driven by the vision as you are driven by the vision. They are driven by the same conviction as additional resources to start action on your company's dream list. I hope you're convinced.
Cascade it to every person who's working in your company. I think that's a great thing. So we've got great opportunities. The second thing that we're saying is cascade that vision that you have across the company. I'm also seeing some very interesting old friends of mine, MC Dinesh, Kiran. COVID will happen. This environment will move to some stability. Hopefully, that we as MSME owners can take to get back
challenges and start looking at growth and new next. Frame to show commitment to reboot your organizations and develop a medium to long-term growth plan. Now, how do you do that? What are the steps that you can take? As a first step forward, I would suggest, and it's my recommendation to my MSME clients, that keep track of what's happening in the market. What is your competition doing? Deeply engage with your customers, prospects, or partners. In fact, even it's and one of the things that I'm reminded of in one of my favorite film dialogues from a Tom Cruise movie, which is "Show me the money." So, how are you going to show them the money? How are you going to show them? You show your customers the money. You show yourselves the money. Next, for MSMEs, is to clearly analyze strengths and weaknesses in the emerging business environment. And, this, of course, you can be first off the block. Building on strengths can certainly help in reutilization of existing resources and to create and drive demand in new areas or verticals or even domains. This can also be used as a great opportunity to drive organization development and build a strong level 2 management so that they can drive growth in the months to come. Defining medium to long-term goals and associated important because you can do all the plans that there's going to be a lot of shortcoming. So the actions identified can incorporate internal focused activities that lead to what we call organic growth, or it could also involve external focused activities, which we can say is inorganic growth. So to elaborate a bit more on this, it is much faster if growth is inorganic, and many an area where I believe MSMEs can start in medium term. I would recommend MSMEs across the board to identify and evaluate collaborations, which could help them gain quicker access to national and global markets. All that with minimal investment. So I see collaboration as a stepping stone for MSMEs, and it could perhaps lead to a joint venture or a merger and acquisition transaction in the months to come, where structured investments are required to be made. So some of the recent examples, there are a large number of manufacturing companies ranging from electronics companies to automotive manufacturing companies, which have collaborated with much smaller design houses to come up with designs which they can use to manufacture. They were in a space which was again targeted at customers, and now they've retargeted themselves, or they've actually started another line where they are providing two-wheelers to delivery for food delivery.
All the emerging opportunities, Deep?
Yeah, Ram. So, what is coming out from what Amit was talking about, or what Sudhir was talking about, is a systematic approach towards running an MS. Was talking about from a growth and opportunities, or keeping track of the growth approach of running an MSME. Okay, running the efficiency of a Malaysian MSME or 2/3 of a Chinese MSME. Okay, now there are multiple factors, and one of the factors that I would like to highlight here is our inability in managing our knowledge or procedural knowledge or know-how that we have. See, most of the MSMEs find it very difficult to grow. Okay, after a level, they find it very difficult to grow. And while the owners many a times blame on many factors, okay, for the reason, the key reason squarely lies with them. And let me repeat that: the growth, as I mentioned in my earlier response, the know-how of the organization typically lies with a very few organizations, okay? Very few people. It may be, in many cases, it may be with the owner only. The moment the owner moves out or owner is no more there, the organization is shut down. That is the typical scenario of our organization. Okay, the entire organization depends only on a few individuals to do the activity. So what is actually happening is that these employees who are considered very critical to the organization essentially end up becoming the bottleneck for growth of the organization, or the growth of the organization is limited by these folks who are considered as critical. Hence, from a long-term perspective, building on what Amit was talking about, Sudhir was talking, for a long-term growth perspective, you need to look into what you know, okay, what are your know-how and all that, and how do we build that. Okay, I'll elaborate a bit on that. So there are two aspects that comes out. First and foremost is you need to understand how is this knowledge or information. This knowledge is a procedural knowledge, your know-how. How is that present in the organization? You go back and check, and most probably you will find out it is only in people's head or limited people's head. It is not even institutionalized. It is not present in the tools and process of the organization. Unless you do that, you will not grow at all, because your bottlenecks are you yourself. You have to ensure that it is process oriented, it gets into the process, it's institutionalized and standardized. Okay, so that is one of the key points I want to talk about. So ensure that what is the knowledge of the organization, the procedural knowledge, that is moved across and that is institutionalized in a way you can scale up faster. Now I'll come to the second point. Okay, now when you talk about the knowledge of an organization, and this is something very commonly I've seen, procedural knowledge is what we talk about. Now we don't talk about know why. Why is this happening? We only know how to do something. We do not know why we are doing something. And this is something missing in MSMEs majorly. And that is why they are not innovating. They are not able to question, why are we doing this way? Is there a better way of doing it? Okay, how is my competition doing this act? This question rarely comes into the MSME domain. And because it is not coming, they are not able to improve upon what. So even if you find out and you kind of ensure that you're institutionalizing your knowledge, you also should ensure that you know how you are doing and why you are doing, and systematically improve the you can have to acquire that.